Hi, I'm Eva Sofianos, and I'm going to use a combination of my years in industry followed by academia, my Googling skills, my networking skills where I've interacted with various people throughout the industry and academia on what they're looking for. I've been on many interviews on both sides of the table, whether it was for a tech interview, for a non-tech interview, for an academic interview, in the looking for someone or looking to be that someone that was hired. So I hope that you find the information I'm going to share with you useful today, and I'll share the resources so that you can use it as your go-to spot for preparing for the next role you want to be in, okay? It's never good when your clicker doesn't work. But I'm close to the computer, so I can just hit next, right? That works. So the before, the during, and the after of interviews, right? Before you go on your interview, what do you need to do? Well, your resume, obviously, right? Sharpening your skills, preparing a cover letter. I know, it's optional, right? Well, what does it say when something is optional and you go that extra mile? You tailor your cover letter for that position and for that company that you are trying to land the job in. It says that you do that in everything and that you are one step ahead of everyone else because of it, possibly helping you to land the job, okay? During the interview, we're going to talk about, well, some skills about being succinct. I can never say that word, succinct, and then one more time. Succinct. There we go. And I just proved that I am not succinct because I need to say it 3 times. Some whiteboarding skills and how you can talk yourself through the problem, walk yourself through the problem, and get your point across, even if you get stuck on a problem or stuck on a word like I just did, right? We'll talk about how important it is to follow up and why you should make the extra effort, and hopefully you'll enjoy the show. Okay, so polish your resume, craft your cover letter, and study intensively. What are you studying? Well, whatever your skills are that pertain to the position you're trying to land, right? You're also studying about the company that you are going to interview with. That's a last-minute study though, right? You're also going to hopefully find out who your interviewer is and use some details to get on their good side, okay? Important parts to include in your resume are what's unique about you, maybe a professional summary. Objective statements aren't really used anymore. It's more 3, 4, 5 lines. Try to keep it tight, especially if you have a lot of years of experience. It's hard for somebody to read through your entire resume. They're not going to want to take that time, okay? Your cover letter, don't just make one cover letter, send it out to everybody. It's not going to help you very much. In fact, it might hurt you. You want to tailor your cover letter for the position, for the employer, and really show the key items in your career that match up with that position. This way, you're the better fit. Okay. What % of online resume submissions get invited for an in-person interview? Take a guess. How many? You're very close, yeah. Anybody else? 0.8. 0.8? Actually, you were closer. So you're right in thinking that it's abysmal, all right? 2%. Okay? So if you're just going and saying, I'm going to submit 300 resumes, that's really hard to find 300 jobs that you're interested in, right? Your odds are minimal. So what are some things that we can do to make it into that 2%, or you felt 0.8 and 1%, right? But make it into that top 2%. Highlight your qualifications, explanations, or give explanations, I should say. Tailor your applications, and really, one really important thing is networking, okay? If you are going to apply for a job and you think that you don't really qualify, but you have more than half of the skills, go for it. If you have less than half, don't bother. But they're really going to look at whether the skills match the position. It's important, right? They're not going to hire you if you don't have the skills. And if you can highlight whether you made an impact in certain portions. So you have 6 seconds or less to impress the recruiter. Now, I'm not the one saying this. I actually found this online and in multiple sources, so I can share those sources with you. They're going to throw it out. And I've done this. I'm guilty of looking and saying, no, okay? So be very careful in what you put there. You're going to have one general resume, and then you're going to tweak it a little bit to match the role, all right? And you know that already. So here are some tips. Don't wait till the end. Professional summary, put it at the top, okay? Reveal your achievements and expertise up front. Professional summary. Who wants to read through 2 pages of bullets? Do you? I don't. So make sure that you make it clear and to the point what it is that sets you apart, why you are good for this job, okay? That's separate from a cover letter. It's a professional summary, and you can put it at the top of your resume. All right, so great. We're saying 2% of online resumes make it through to a person, right? And then once it gets to a person, you have 6 seconds to impress them. How do you get to that person? You make it past the bots, right? So let's take a quiz together. This is the end of the day, so I figured it would be important to be interactive. Do you know
If you are having trouble with our automated telephone system, and would like a live operator to assist you, press 0 now. If not, this recording will begin again. Welcome to Irv's World of Junk.
All right, so we want to make it past the bots, right? And I can't make it past the bots. I love it when I have difficulties. All right, let's beat the bots. Ready for a quiz? You're like, wait a minute. I didn't know I was taking a quiz when I sat down for this session. Yes, unfortunately for you, I am a professor, so I give a lot of quizzes, and that means you have to help me with this. What does ATS stand for?
1, 3.
Show of hands. 1, 2, or 3. You can talk it out.
3.
Let me see. Keep them up. 3, 3, 3. Change from 1. That was peer pressure, right? 3, 3, 3. Yeah, 3. All right. So yes, applicant tracking system. Good. All right. So what do we know about applicant tracking systems? Let's take quizzes. Yeah, that's true, right? It's like the Al Bundy and waiting to speak to a person. You're like, I really want a job, or I want to change jobs, or whatever it is. I need to get to a person. I need them to give my resume that 6-second chance.
I need LinkedIn to give me more than 50 skills.
Yeah, true, exactly.
Because of 24 years of experience, I can only learn 2 things a year, and I'm screwed.
And you're wondering how you can fit 5, 6, 7 pages worth of quality work into 2 pages, right? I still haven't figured that out. I still cannot figure that part out. It's a work in progress. But luckily for me, I have a CV instead of a resume.
That's where the cover letter comes in, though.
Yes, exactly. You get to fill those in. All right, so what's the preferred file type for the applicant tracking system when submitting your resume online? 1, doc or text. 2, PDF. 3, JPEG or PNG. Now, think about this before you answer, because the bot needs to go through all the text and find out keywords, right? Think about this. And also, the preferred file type for ATS is different for when you're sending it via email.
Yeah.
So you would definitely send it as a PDF via email, right? Because you don't want people to modify your stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So the hint
that
is...
And also some security software is wary about DOCs and TXT files in emails.
Okay, so whenever you're sending via email, PDF, we're good on that, right? Okay, I agree with you. Send as PDF via email. However, for the tracking system, it's different. What's the preferred? Doc.
Or copy paste, right? Sometimes they allow you to copy paste it right into like
A text area, yes. So it needs to be as text. And in a doc, it's formatted text, but still it's text that is readable by a bot. The PDF doesn't necessarily get translated well, and a lot of your skills can be lost, or even your name can be lost, all right? So here's something interesting. Which elements should be included in your resume when you're submitting online? Now, when you're submitting it online, it doesn't need to have a pretty format, especially if you're doing it through a form. So 1, tables, columns, charts. 2, images, or 3, none of the above? 3. All right. You guys are good. You're helping me out here. Okay. And it's keeping you awake. All right. We're the last talk of the day. I have to keep you awake first. That's the most important part. So what should you include in your document's header section? Not the heading, but the header. So if you are a web developer, we put things in the head of the HTML, right, for other bots to read. If you are submitting your resume, though, and you're using, let's say, Word or Pages or Google Docs or whatever you use, in the header...
Headers and footers are ignored.
Ah, very good. Yes, so headers and footers are ignored. So what are you going to do? 4, nothing. Everything goes in the body. So networking, we said we need to beat the bots, right? We went through the quiz and we proved that we should be able to beat the bots and get into the 2%, but there's another way. There's a way that will increase our odds because, well, 30% or so of hires are actually done through networking. You're here. I'm going to encourage you to network if you haven't already and meet people so that you can find your next dream job. You're already attending conferences, going to meetups, right? And you mentioned LinkedIn, so I guess you're already on social media. Congratulations, you have an interview tomorrow. Do you? Yay, but then, uh-oh, now you have to really find out, okay, all these details about your interviewer, the team, brush up on anything that you have been slacking off on, okay? Remember, you're in the 2% now, so keep calm, plan your commute, don't be late. Has anyone ever been late to an interview or know anyone? Don't admit if you've been late.
I actually interviewed someone yesterday and they were late and she was still my top candidate, so
So it was good.
For what it's worth, yeah.
Once in a while it happens, right?
It's a tough one though when it does.
Yeah, because you're thinking twice about it, and if they're that good, it's kind of worth it, but you still, I know that down here you're wondering. Yeah. You're like, I hope this doesn't happen day 1. Okay, so get a good night's sleep, and you know it's not going to happen. It's better to say get a good night's sleep than to do that, or easier to say it than to do it. Prepare your attire. You can handle that and then change your mind last minute, right? Go for it. Plan your commute, plan your commute, plan your commute. Don't be late. And of course, print your resume. Even if you know that they already have copies, don't forget to do that the night before. If you're doing it the day of, it's just not good. So have a great day, and you got this. Go on your next interview. And I just need to hit next, but I'm having technical difficulties. Yeah, it's not, my clicker's not working today. Dude, what's going on? I'm hitting next. Okay. Got it. All right, so during the interview, okay, who you are from a professional standpoint is one of the things that your interviewer is going to try and find out. Unfortunately, interviews are limited in time, right? So you only have 2, 3, maybe 8 hours if it's a full day, and maybe they'll call you back for another interview. So they're going to ask you certain questions such as, tell me about yourself, okay? And what is it that you are interested in doing here? Or why do you want to work for this company? Whatever it might be, aside from the technical stuff. You need to really know ahead of time what it is that differentiates you from the crowd, okay? And use that. Always use examples to support your case, because you may have somebody else competing for the same position as you with very similar very similar backgrounds, but a different thinking style or a different personality. And all of this comes into play when you're interviewing. So why are you the ideal Why are you the ideal fit? English is not my first language, so I apologize. Greek is, but if I sound like I'm speaking Greek to you, that's why. Okay, so why you're the ideal fit for the position, anything that you can kind of guess and steer your way into meeting what they want. Now, it's tricky. You have to play the game of give and take a little bit. But if you've done your research ahead of time, you know the company's goals and missions, you know the team you're going to work for, and if you've looked on social media, LinkedIn, and maybe even message your interviewer, possible. It's a touchy subject. You have to play it right. If it's somebody that you know or were referred to, then maybe yes. Otherwise, you don't want to seem creepy. So be careful with that. And they're also going to want to know when you're available to start. Now, when you're first starting out in your career, almost any job is the ideal job. A few years down the road, you start saying, are you right for me? Because you've gained the experience, you've gained the knowledge of, it's not always the best fit for me. So they want to know when you're available to start. You may be available in a few weeks or a month, and then once they make you the offer, you decide that you found a better offer. That's fine too. At least you got some practice and you have another job lined up. So some interviews go well, others not so well. We're going to share some stories of interviews that went kind of well until something went wrong, okay? Because you always plan ahead. You say, I did my research, I know who I'm going to speak with, I know what I'm going to say, and then you get there and you're like, yeah, I forgot everything. So it's part planning, part acting. And I would like you to meet Alberto, all right? He's a software engineer with a few years of experience and a BS in computer science. He recently went on an interview, but feared he had not made a good impression, okay? He did well at the whiteboard. He was really good at problem solving. He was good at expressing himself and explaining why he was making certain decisions as he went along. He asked questions with each problem to clarify that he was going down the right path, that he had understood the problem correctly, and he even went so far as to try and improve on his solutions, okay? But when he was in the behavioral portion of his interview, he was asked the question of, why do you want to work for our company? His answer was, it's not that I want to work for your company, it's that I want to be the best software engineer I can be. I don't care whether it's for you or for some other company. As soon as he said that, he knew he had messed up. He wished he could take those words back and shove them right down his throat. But he just sat there and waited and moved on to the next question. What might have been better for him to say would have been, I want to work for your company because, insert the detail that matches the company's goals, and the team does X, Y, Z. Both align with my goals, and I have worked on similar projects doing this, that, and the other. Therefore, I will be a fantastic candidate to fill this position. But he didn't. So here's another story, different in nature. Ben, right? He did well on his soft skills. He demonstrated he had done his research on the company, okay? But he wasn't so good at working at the whiteboard. It is an unrealistic environment unless you will be in academia, let's say, teaching every day. You're not going to be coding at the whiteboard. You might be problem solving, but you're not going to be writing code. So he messed up there, he froze completely, and instead of interacting with his interviewer, he just stood there silently and hoped that somewhere the clarity would rise from the fog. He made a bad impression, let's just say that. And he also proved that he did not perform well under pressure. So that's another thing that interviewers are looking for. Can you solve problems? Do you have a good personality? Do you know when to hold your tongue and when to speak? Do you work well under pressure? Are you on time is something that counts also because you think about it after. Let's see. This was Ben. He felt disappointed, right? Worn out. So would I. So would you, right? Tips when whiteboarding: clarify the specifications, think out loud, support each decision, if possible with examples, confirm assumptions, and lean on your interviewer. Your interviewer is there to help you. They don't want to hurt you. They have a need in their team, division, department, and they need to fill it. A lot of times, interviewers don't realize that their interviewer is taking time out of their busy schedule to fill that void, and they're just in panic mode. It's mutual. You need a job, and they need an employee. So I'd like you to meet one more person, and then we'll stop with the stories, and we'll go on to more skills, okay? This is Catalina. She's a developer with multiple years of experience and an MS in computer science. She recently went on an interview and did great on the problem solving as well as behavioral portions, but didn't accentuate her past experience. Now, Ben didn't do well on whiteboarding and problem solving, right? Alberto didn't do well in the discussion of the problems, but he was a good problem solver. This young lady has it all, but didn't highlight her experience. So if somebody with similar experience, similar goals, similar personality came in, they might have won over the interviewer and gotten the job instead of her. I don't know what happened to Catalina after, but had she made sure to highlight where she was better than others, she would have been the best candidate for the job. So they were a little upset with the situation and decided that they needed to act on it. So they took action. Alberto, Ben, and Catalina, see? They took action, right? Communication, whiteboarding, working the clock, and selling yourself. These are all things that you can do before you get to the interview or prepare yourself on before you get to the interview. Communication, right? Body language. If you're standing like this, standing like that, we all know this, right? You've been around the block before. Is it good if you enter the interview and you're just sitting like this? What would you think of a candidate that you would, where are you? Like, we're not hanging out. You're interviewing for a position. I expect you to impress. So. I have some dudes that are supposed to show up. There we go. Okay. The word that I cannot pronounce. So I challenge myself, yes. Say it. Can you say it? I can't say it. Ah, she said succinctness. So I made it even more difficult than saying succinct. Now I'm saying succinctness. Okay. Being able to express yourself in a limited time, briefly, shortly, and clearly. All right? Empathy and emotional intelligence. So it's good to be smart, right? But if you have no heart and you're interacting with other people, it's not necessarily going to mesh well. And even in the tech industry, you do need to work with other people, right? It's not just you and your computer always. Listening. During your interview, if you don't listen to what your interviewer is saying, one, you can't answer the problem because you haven't understood it. And also, you're showing that you're not going to be doing that when you have a prospective client or a teammate or anybody else. Respect and friendliness. So you're going to say hello, possibly shake their hand. You wait for them to see if they offer their hand first. You're not going to pound them. You're not going to hug them. You're not going to say, hey, dude, what's up, right? Friendliness comes, to a certain extent. They're not your buddy. They're your interviewer. You don't know them for more than a few hours. Hopefully, you will know them because you'll get the job. Confidence. Okay, so we have our superhero pose. Make sure that you don't do it while you're there, but internally do it, okay? Be sure of yourself You know that you have the credentials, you know that you got into the 2% and were able to get that interview, so make the most of it now. You're there. Whiteboarding do's, don'ts. So don't assume anything without confirming. What does that mean? If somebody asks you, what's your name? You're not going to say, what's my name? But if they ask you to solve a particular problem, such as line up these stickers, you might want to just check, should I line up these stickers in a row, or should I line up these stickers in a column? Don't make assumptions on how they want them lined up. Don't silently solve or try to solve or get stuck. Like, who was it? Alberto? He got stuck, right? Or was it Ben? I know. Who was it? It was Ben. Okay. So Alberto, you know, it was Ben. They're made up names. You ask questions, you try to communicate what it is you're trying to solve. If I get stuck when they ask me to line up these stickers, I'm not going to stand here looking at the stickers until I'm hypnotized. I'm going to say, oh, I should be lining up the stickers? Okay, and like I said, in a row or a column, just continue to ask questions. Don't ignore interviewer hints. They're there to help you. We said that before, right? So if they're saying, like, you know, line them up in a column, use that to help you. Don't ever argue with the interviewer, however wrong you may think they are. Please, I've heard of cases where there has been not a full-blown argument, but, you know, excessive disagreement, and it's never good. These are just tips. You've all been in interviews, and you know how they go, but let's remind ourselves. Don't forget to test your code for mistakes. Let's say you're whiteboarding, you solve the problem, or you think you solved the problem. If you just say, I'm done, and you don't try and test it, I don't think it will make a very good impression, okay? And that's the prematurely announcing you're done. One tip when you're whiteboarding, you don't want to write too big because you'll fill up the board. You don't want to write too small because they won't be able to see it. And if you are vertically challenged like me, do not start near the middle or the bottom of the board. Tiptoe if you need to in the beginning, because what's going to happen? If you have a board that's this big and you're starting over here, you end up at the bottom, maybe making an arrow. It makes it much harder to solve an easy problem. All right, so do's. Like we said, confirm you understood the problem. Repeat the question to the interviewer. So they ask you to line things up. It's a good idea to say, oh, you want me to line them up? Should I line them up in a column? Should I line them up in a row? However. And clarify your assumptions. Okay? Ask the questions. Range of input. Input type. Any possible outliers. Format. Things like that. Work through an example. Talk and draw as you go. Don't just draw or don't just solve on the whiteboard. If you're solving internally and you're making a mistake and you're not interacting with your interviewer, they might try to stop you or they might just wait until you're in a dead end and then say, maybe you want to back up a few steps, if they do know the solution to the problem, how to solve it, which usually they have an idea. So explain a possible solution approach, even if you need to use, let's say, brute force, even if it's not optimal. Go through and say, okay, I know that I can, if I'm supposed to, let's say, reverse these, okay? I know that I can reverse them in this way, and then revisit the problem. Try to improve on it. So discuss time and space complexity. This is a tech interview, right? So these things matter. Show that you have an understanding of efficiency. Write clean code, okay? If you need to write pseudocode, that's fine. Obviously, you don't have an IDE there that you're typing into to complete the words for you and complete the methods for you. But write it clean, and each thing that you're doing, be specific explain your steps. And of course, step through with test cases. Make sure that you've met all of the requirements and ask questions as you go, okay? Work the clock. What does this mean? One thing I keep saying is that you have a limited amount of time, right? Just as in anything in life, you have a deadline. You may have a half hour, an hour session at the whiteboard, and an hour is actually a lot. Be concise and deliberate, okay? Not only there, but when you end up at your behavioral portion. And in every interaction, when you're at the whiteboard, also think not only about your problem-solving skills, but about your mannerisms. How are you interacting with your interviewer? Are you coming off as argumentative? Are you coming off as someone who can't take feedback? Are you coming off as someone who is willing to work with others, who asks questions, who's open-minded? All those things matter, and if you can take advantage of them from the beginning of the interview to the end, then you're setting up yourself for a more successful day. So use past examples. Even at the whiteboard, you can use them because you've possibly solved similar problems, although not the same because you don't know them ahead of time. Or you can say, oh, in my other job, I solved this problem. And you're highlighting as well. Do the same thing in your discussions. And if there's time for you to show sample work, whether it's a link to your GitHub account or you actually brought your project with you and you're ready to demo it, and that time is allowed, go for it. Sell yourself. Dress the part. Don't go in your sweats, although I would love to, right? Even at a company whose culture is accepting of, let's say, flip-flops and shorts, you don't want to show up like that for your interview. It just says, I'm here. I understand that I am interviewing for a position. I should dress appropriately. You don't need to dress like you're going to a wedding, but you should be nicely put together. Make sure you share your strengths. Don't forget. Don't sound boastful in the sense that I'm the best one, you need to hire me now, but every opportunity you have, fill it in with, I did this, and if there's a percentage attached to it, include it. So I decreased costs by X% because I automated that system. Quantify. Ask questions, show interest. You can ask questions to find out how many developers there are on the team if you don't know already and they haven't shared that. Ask what tools they use, anything extra that is pertinent to the job. And also, ahead of time, prepare a 30-second pitch, okay? One that will include who you are, what you've done, and what you want to do. After the interview, thank you. They're taking time out of their busy schedule. The follow-up is really important, and it's really important to get it done within a day, max 2. You don't want to wait a week for many reasons. One is you'll probably forget. 2 is they may have already chosen a candidate or who will go to the next level of interviews. But thank them. Make sure that in your follow-up letter you show your enthusiasm for the position. Highlight any matches that you have with the position that will set you apart. And if there's something that you unfortunately didn't get a chance to address in your interview that you really think is important, highlight that as well. Such as, I did ABC and it went blah, blah, blah. Okay? I can't really tailor it to each individual. You know what it is that sets you apart. And you possibly know a lot of this, but hopefully it's bringing back those memories and summarizing it for you. Okay. If they mentioned, and hopefully they did, you asked that question of, oh, when will I hear from you? Use that in your follow-up. Don't say, oh, I better hear from you by that day. But I look forward to hearing from you if they said next week. I look forward to hearing from you next week because that gives you the opportunity after a week passes to send a second follow-up reminder and not, be too nuts. All right, so this is about saying thank you, your follow-up, and that a simple gesture really does go a long way. Those are your tips. 1, 2, 3 that we repeated. So putting it all together, we have our before, resume, cover letter, your online profile. It's important that you have code online if you're looking for a coding interview. It's very important that you have proper network connections and show. Try to avoid having weird things on your social media that could possibly be offensive. In the case that you end up with an interview and your interviewer goes searching through your social feed and sees it, okay? Certain things are meant to be only in the friend circle and certain things are meant to be public. Networking, you're here, you're already doing it. Projects, if you're in school, not just your class projects, but any projects on your own. If you're working full-time, anything that you haven't signed the NDA agreement on, display it. Projects out of work, if you can work on them without IP violations, and I don't mean IP address, I mean intellectual property violations. Everything that you can use to beef up your credentials beforehand. And this is months and years in the working. It's a nonstop progress. It sounds exhausting. Well, life is exhausting, right? If we want to keep moving forward, then we need to keep doing these things, all right? Reading books, reading about the company that you might interview with, reading about your interviewer, reading in general. And when I say preparing, it's all of those and anything else that you can possibly do, such as your extra coding. During, well, whiteboarding, we went through that, the do's and don'ts. I didn't think it was very efficient for me to take up 45 minutes showing you how to whiteboard one algorithm. It wouldn't make sense, right? So we can just talk simply about the do's and don'ts. Communication, making sure that from body language to listening to your handshake, to everything that you do, sharing a story and showing empathy that you are communicating that you're the best person for this position. Working the clock, make sure that you fit things in the timeline. Try not to be late. Your interview will eventually end, and don't let it go into the awkward zone and your interviewer having to cut you off completely. There is a point where they will give you a cue, such as, oh, thank you very much, or great, we'll be contacting you, or whatever it may be. They may start getting up from their seat if you're seated, or if you're in a group interview, it'll be for 30 minutes, 45, an hour, whatever it is, okay? Handling feedback. If at any point you're in the discussion, whether it's problem solving or behavioral portion, and your interviewer or interviewers give you some feedback, be very careful in how you react. It's very easy to get caught up in your nerves when you're on an interview and this position is important to you. Just react like, no, I know I'm right. Think about it. Hold yourself. That's the most challenging part. Highlight your accomplishments. Don't be like Catalina and forget to highlight them. And if you did forget during your interview, you have one little chance where maybe you can fit a sentence extra in your follow-up. Aligning with the team. So let's say you're doing team interview, right? You have 3, 4, 5, however many people that you interview with. You want to mesh not only with their thinking process, but also with their personality. And you can't force this. This is not something that's forced. It's something that needs to happen organically. But wherever you see that you do mesh, use one of those details and build upon it so that they remember you and realize that you are a good fit. Yeah?
I was going to offer another great technique for during the interview, which I personally use and which I feel like has helped me seal the deal. Kind of goes along the lines of feedback. So I will ask towards the end of the interview, if I know there's still time, yes. I will specifically ask the interviewer and say, is there anything about our conversation or our interactions that we've had so far that has you wondering whether or not I'm a good fit for this job? So I'm actually asking them what's still missing, right? Because they might be leaving that room wondering about something that I can actually answer for them, right? It just somehow didn't come up. And sometimes it's difficult because they will say X, Y, and Z, and you're like, all right, clearly I don't have that skill or this, yep, totally get it. But I've actually used that to seal the deal and show them that I am the right fit for that job specifically because of the one thing that maybe they're wondering about in their mind.
Exactly. Or saying, is there anything else you'd like to know that we didn't get a chance?
Yeah, let them know that you're available for feedback, that you like feedback, and then if there's a misconception, you can
That's
just
right.
get it
You
right
can
out
correct
of
the
their head.
misconception.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. Great. So I really like interaction because everybody has something to offer. We've all been on interviews, and we all use them as learning lessons.
On
Yeah.
the before, when you're doing your preparing and stuff like that, I find if you look at who you think is going to be interviewing you, like if you act as the business owner and say, well, who would I put in this interview? Research who those people are in the company and see if you can find them on LinkedIn. Especially some of the more senior people may have speaking engagements and stuff like that. If you can see them in a video and see them talking, when you go to the interview, you feel like you already know the person, so you're much more comfortable with that person.
Especially
Yeah.
if you have
And if you can even mention something, oh yeah, I remember that talk you gave about it, they really get impressed with like, oh, okay, well they took an interest in me.
Exactly. So you don't want to take it as far as, oh, I know you have 2 kids and a dog, but because that's just creepy. But showing that you have done your research and you are interested in them as a person does bring you to the next level. Thank you. Really good points.
And also when you're in the middle of an interview, if you don't think you have enough information on the company, that they haven't put up their core values or their mission statement or anything online, or that you just can't find, if you, in the first part of the interview, you can ask, why does this company exist? Why do you guys do what you do? And what are your core values and this kind of information? You can give yourself ammunition to align yourself with the team.
Yes.
So,
Thank you.
yeah.
And then your 30-second pitch. You're going to obviously introduce yourself, right? And it's not the same 30-second pitch that you would use, let's say, in the actual elevator or whatever, because you have different opportunities within the interview. But you want to make sure that you address certain things, such as if you've written a book and that doesn't come up, but you have a point in there where you can address it, use that. Things like that. And then after we've mentioned show appreciation, reinforce your application, this would be the last closing minutes and in your follow-up. Highlight the key alignments, address interview details such as, oh, I like when we discussed ABC. I thought it was good for this, that, the other. Anything else? Being specific. Express your enthusiasm. I look forward to hearing from you whenever it may be, if you heard those details and you discussed them. Including the contact info, what do I mean by that? Well, obviously email these days, right? But if you want them to contact you via phone also, don't have them go looking for it. If you prefer to not have them contact you via phone, don't put your phone in there, because let's say you're a person whose phone rings at odd hours and you know that you might pick it up at an inappropriate time and make a bad impression, then don't. But include your contact info or your GitHub account or whatever else it is that you want them to see without them having to go search for it. So, are you ready to nail the tech interview? Beat the 6-second test. Join the 2%. Reminders, you're already here. We mentioned this a few times. So network with others if you haven't already. And I will be providing links for anyone who wants to read certain resources on self-preparation and practicing and HackerRank and possibly working on projects or books that I suggest, things like that. And I like these minions. They crack me up. I think they keep you a little bit awake, especially at this time in the last talk. So you've got only 3 choices in your life. You either give up, you give in, or you give it your all. So I want you to go and give it your all and get your dream job. Thank you.